email, banking, shopping, sharing, and liking. All these activities are done in the digital landscape that is the internet. But there's a dark side to this technology. Lurking out of sight are predators waiting to strike, to steal your credit card number, your password, even your identity. How do you know it's safe? How do you protect yourself? How cyber secure are you? Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Laurie Amata. Now, if this Insights topic on cybersecurity sounds familiar, that is because it's the third time we're hosting a discussion on this issue, a very popular issue. Our last show on cybersecurity was shortly after Equifax, one of the largest credit bureaus in the U.S., was hacked, exposing the personal information of 147 million Americans. The Hawaii Office of Consumer Protection announced the state will receive $1 million as part of a settlement in a class action lawsuit against Equifax. So is cybersecurity improving? Well, tonight we're going to hear from some professionals who will talk about what we can do to protect ourselves. So as always, we look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. All right, now to our guest. Jody Ito is the University of Hawaii's Information Security Officer. She is responsible for the security and protection of the information assets across the entire UH system. Attila Sures is the president of Silanda, a local IT firm with a focus on cybersecurity and telecommunications for Oahu businesses. And Timothy Ames is the Chief Technology Officer for Hawaii Tech Support. He began his career in IT, radio, and satellite communications in the Marine Corps and has been involved in information security in different capacities since then. And William Bales is a supervisory special agent over the FBI's Honolulu Cyber Squad, which is responsible for investigating cyber crimes across Hawaii, Guam, and Saipan. So plenty to talk about here, and I think that the overarching topics are, of course, very familiar to people. We talk about it a lot, but so much is changing all the time, and we're still seeing so much cyber crime. So this is an important topic to this day.
Absolutely. I think just because of how technology has evolved and the use of technology in our everyday lives with all of the devices that we now have and are so connected, there's so many opportunities for criminals to get involved and to take our data and assume our identities.
Right? Yeah, we're exposing ourselves too. We really are. Okay, so you were on the show last year, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So even within a year, what's new? What's changed? What's happened?
Well, so a lot of it is still the same. We still have the same issues related to people having weak passwords or weak cyber hygiene, as we call it. But again, as I mentioned, just the amount of data that we provide in our everyday lives when we do online shopping or social media, we're providing data to people in so many different ways that can be harvested and then be used to create profiles and then be able to gain insight into us and then take advantage of us even more so than what we did a few years ago.
So just kind of out of the gate, what's your...
Well, I mean, one of the things that we're seeing, if you just turn on the news, you'll see that there's a lot of more targeted attacks, specifically related to federal and state infrastructure. So, for instance, just to look at Florida, for instance, they've paid over $1 million in ransom just in the past few months just to get back up and running. And this is not just one small town, this is several small towns.
So tell me about that. I'm not as familiar with what happened.
Oh, sure. So the most recent one was a couple weeks ago. They paid about $640,000 in Bitcoin.
And this is the state?
This is the state, yeah. This is a small town out in
Bitcoin.
Florida. In Bitcoin, so untraceable, right?
Untraceable.
So, and of course, the FBI did not advise that they do that. Right. And William is being very generous of being quiet about that. But yes, the FBI does not advise to pay the ransom, but they went ahead and did it. And of course, another small town also followed suit because they can't operate.
Right. But look what happened with Baltimore. Who didn't pay.
Yeah.
And so now they've what went from a $250,000 ransom ended up being several $1 million in recovery. Plus, when you're recovering, when you're doing those recovery operations, you're not always certain that you got everything. You know, we're talking about records like DMV records. We're talking about, you know, records that are really important to people's, you know, lives. Maybe they don't know it's missing until 5-10 years down the road when they go and need to get a copy and it's missing, it's gone.
They're looking at the initial ransom was $80,000. Over $18 million has been
Wow.
trying to get that back, and they're down.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's really a business decision at times too.
Now we're starting to see critical infrastructure, like at Johannesburg, right? We had that. That was
medical hospitals are now being targeted also. I mean, they're targeting records that are really difficult to replace or recreate, and then encrypting them, and then you're basically a hostage, right? You have to.
So is it just because of the sophistication of these entities now that are going, that they're able to do it, as to why they didn't do it, say, I don't know, several years ago? When I would think that a lot of the, say, for example, State Departments, their IT systems, I would imagine, on average, are much more antiquated than a lot of other businesses. So why wouldn't they be targets earlier on? What's happening now where they're getting to that?
Yeah, there's a mix. So it's really the prevalence of tools that are available to attackers now, and it doesn't take a lot of knowledge. It doesn't take a lot of IT knowledge to launch a cyber attack. Kits are available on the dark web where people could just download them and pretty much launch them. You know, use mail lists that are already aggregated for them, and just send out large amounts of email. And at that point, it's basically just waiting to see until somebody clicks on a link, maybe on a phished email that was sent out. It doesn't take a lot of technical expertise to launch, so that's I think one factor. And why aren't state agencies, why aren't federal agencies, you know, why aren't they hit as much? Well, they have that defense in depth, so they have backups in place. Maybe they are getting hit, but they also, I think, take the biggest step where they require all of their employees or staff to have training, you know, to look, to be aware of what to look for and what not to click. So.
But that's how they got in.
Yeah.
Every single time, it's phishing email.
Yep,
and why are they not back up? Right?
Right.
Because they didn't have a good backup. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, just look what happened with the DMV here last year, right? Lost all those records, what was it? Poor backup, right? So having good practices in place really manages your risk. And if they don't follow a good, you know, we don't want to make William's job any more difficult than it needs to be at the FBI. You know, have a good backup in place.
Don't have to pay the ransom.
Don't have to pay the ransom.
Right.
This last ransomware attack we dealt with last week wasn't a big deal. They were up in a day, right? Because they had an excellent backup, wasn't a big deal. Done. Right.
Well, one of the biggest things is that people see these on the news, these attacks on the news. That's very unfortunate for them, but that won't happen to me. And that's the mindset that we get comfortable into. Unfortunately, with ransomware or whatever it is, it's not necessarily targeted. It's targets of opportunity. It's that you haven't secured your networks, so now you are going to become a target because of that.
Right.
See, that's actually kind of a good point, because you were talking about how some of the, what was it, you put out different types of information, video, whatnot, that people respond to, and you get feedback from that. And we were talking earlier about how the stories about the scams, the different cases, people are very interested in hearing about that. So is part of this sort of a desensitivity then?
You are exactly correct. So that's the biggest problem, right? Is that it's coming from all angles, right? We're talking about it here on the air, and they get like the cybersecurity burnout. Yeah. And the answer to that is you got to give people something they can do about it.
Something easy, something tangible, tactical.
Absolutely. Right. So with every, you mentioned we do like little videos. It's true. With every video, there's always a takeaway. You got to take something out of this event and learn from it. Otherwise, you can't get any better. And history is just bound to repeat itself.
Right, and I think people really don't realize how it affects them in general until it really happens to them. So we would always be telling people, make sure you have secure passwords, make sure you don't post too much information on the internet, until somebody actually gets swindled out of money or some information personally, then they pay attention to it, right?
Yeah. And there's even the question of like, okay, so now people know they have to have a secure password. But what is a secure password? So they have pieces of the information, they have pieces of the puzzle, what they should be doing, but you know the hackers aren't Angelina Jolie and you know the Matrix attacking behind the scenes. It's like I wish it was too, right? Make our job more interesting. But you know it's not like they're going to, you know, targeted attacks are going to be successful most of the time, but the non-targeted attacks where you're just getting credential harvesting and stuff, if you're not using the same password on multiple accounts, you're protecting yourself. If you're using a long password versus a complex password and short complex.
And see that I'm so glad that we were talking about that earlier, because that was my assumption. I assumed that the more complicated the password, that the better it would be. But that's not necessarily the case. You just literally want a longer password.
Right.
Because, so what is happening? Why is that better?
Well, it's entropy. So the more characters that you add, it's just, like you're adding to the 27th factor. Every
Okay.
time you add a character, you're adding another times 27, times 27, times 27.
And if you
And
add
that's
in
just for
numbers,
alphas.
that
Yeah.
increases it. So, right. So you want it to be longer but easy to remember. Because sometimes a very short, complex password, you're not going to remember that either.
That's true.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
And there's actually tables of hashed, cracked everything. Every combination of letters, numbers, and special characters.
Anyway.
Up to 9, 10 characters. Right. So anything shorter than 10 characters really isn't safe for somebody that has one of those tools.
Yeah, but realistically, brute force attack is pretty rare.
It is, yeah.
What we usually see is that we'll go on the dark web and we'll do a search for a client, and we'll see that there's something there. Right. And then we work backwards from there. And I'm sure you see the same thing. I mean, once that information is out there, usually you start backpedaling and you find out that, yes, their network is infected with something, and it's been harvesting all their passwords as they've been entering them in.
I'm going to let you continue that conversation, but the producer in my ear said exactly what I had in my mind. But not everybody really knows what the dark web is. Like, I think it's just this sort of semi-mystery to people who aren't actually involved in, cybersecurity and technology on a deeper level. I'm still in my head, I'm like, wow, it's so mysterious. It's the dark web. It's somewhere over there where it's dark. So how would you explain the dark web to people, and how do you get to it, I guess?
Well, everyone's heard of the Titanic, right? Yeah. It hit an iceberg. And so what did it see? It saw the tip of the iceberg. So think about the public internet, the one that you see every day, Yahoo, CNN, PBS, right? That's part of the public internet. And the much greater part of the internet underneath that is called the dark web. And that's where organized crime operates. There's terrorism and a lot of other unsavory characters. That's where that kind of stuff goes on. A lot of drugs go on over there.
This might be a weird way to say it, but for lack of a better way of saying this, how do you qualify to be part of the dark web as opposed to the regular web?
Yeah, so
what does that
there's a dark web and then there's a deep web, right?
We would all get
Going
into trouble if we tell
Going down the
people
rabbit
how to
hole.
get on there.
Well,
So
no,
that's
get
just
on.
fair
Let's say
disclosure.
from a criminal or legal standpoint, if you're don't have an IP address or something, or how would you
I'll tell you
generally
this right
define?
now. Getting on the dark
Just
web
curious.
isn't difficult because every single ransomware attack is gonna point you in the direction to getting on the dark web, paying some bitcoins
They
through
know
the dark
now
web.
that's what you
So
want to do.
it's not difficult. If people want to find out how to do it, don't get ransomware attack. Just Google it. But it is a separate. It's kind of like there is a steps to gain onto it. So you have to download a client, or
something
you have to download new.
It's kind of out there now.
You won't just stumble.
Yeah, you won't just stumble on the dark web.
Right. It has to be an intentional access to it, and then know that somebody is probably tracking you as you're doing that.
Yeah.
And it is easy enough
Who
to
would that
win.
But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But this is interesting. So that's where you're kind of doing a lot of your work as far as finding out what's happening and what people are doing.
And we know that they actually will try to reuse the credentials that they found before. The criminals will. So we actually would have accounts compromised at the University of Hawaii, and then they reset their password back to the same one. Well, guess their account gets compromised again. So it does happen where they will retry the same credentials once it's been exposed, and they'll just keep trying again and again. And they'll try it on multiple accounts too.
Or their LinkedIn account, like their LinkedIn.com. LinkedIn got a credential breach.
Right.
So if I know somebody's LinkedIn password, people like to reuse their password, so there's a good chance I may have their Bank of Hawaii password as well.
Once it gets onto the dark web, they want to sell it, right? So think about, this is a business. They're there to make money.
Absolutely.
And so, a stolen password isn't worth that much. A credit card is worth maybe $1 to $2. PII or PHI, so this is your health information, that's worth $30 to $40. Right. It's much more difficult to change blood type, right? But your password, back to your original point, when they find a username and password combination, they take that information and they try it against everything, right? Hawaiian Airlines, your LinkedIn account, your perhaps Yelp or Google accounts, and they try that username and password combination. If they get a hit, now that's worth more.
I see.
Right? So now they can ask a little bit more money for that. So a lot of the stored credentials that we see on the dark web, a lot of them are already encrypted because they've validated that it does work. Right. And they say, okay, we can charge you a little bit more money for that. And if you are a target,
it
then
broadens
we'll
the
go for
scope of access. Right.
It might be.
It's more valuable because it can access more things.
Might be the credentials into their company's remote network or something.
And these new strains of ransomware, like the Ryuk ransomware that we're starting to see now, they're highly, highly targeted. So they're looking at these dark web credentials and they say, okay, we have a fit. Now we know we're going to go after this medical clinic, or we're going to go after this other chain that's highly, highly visible, and then we're going to go out and we're going to get that. We're going to get into their network. And unfortunately, it's very hard to stop it once it's already gained that kind of momentum, because they've done a lot of mining, they've done a lot of work to infiltrate. It could take months to get in there. The good news is that now our court systems are starting to recognize that we do have a deterrent. And if you look at the recent Zippy's breach that occurred, and what was done about it, they finally made 4 arrests because someone was actively participating in buying that information that was picked up from the Zippy's breach, and because it was within our in our shores here on Oahu, we were able to do something about it. So hopefully that will serve as an example to others who want to participate in this illegal activity.
So Will, you're with the Cyber Squad with the FBI. What are you seeing? Like what's in recent years? What's standing out to you?
Predominantly, we still have business email compromise, which is where they're masquerading as the CEO or somebody in charge of potentially money of a company, and then changing some kind of invoice right at the last second. For example, you're buying some goods from a company, and of course there's a bill of sale, and when you go to pay that, the company all of a sudden says, instead of sending it to this account number, you need to send it to this new account number. And of course that email has been compromised or spoofed.
So it looks like it's the same letterhead.
It looks like the same
everything's
company.
the same, but
And there's usually some kind of time constraint, and usually a high dollar amount is associated with it.
so those are the red flags that people can look out for if they're not, if it's not necessarily obvious right off the bat, is an unusual change of some kind in what they're asking for.
All over the phone call.
Or time sensitivity, some kind of, for lack of a better term for this, because we're cybersecurity, 2-factor authentication for transactions. So instead of just wiring the money off, which is probably a standard business practice, maybe you need to phone up the person who emailed you and said,
So you can
hey,
ask for that 2-step.
Yes.
Right, verify the
verification.
transaction.
So it's not just on the
actually
other.
legitimate.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. It's not just what you might have to do if you're trying to, that you can ask for that.
Right.
If you're doing a transaction. with
Especially
somebody.
if they're asking to change the account as to where the money will be sent to. Right?
Okay.
That would be a heads up. And sometimes maybe they did change the number, but at least you can verify that before you send the transaction over.
Well, that's a valid point, and now the insurance companies are getting wise to that advice. So now, if you're an organization, you can purchase cybersecurity insurance, right? But you won't get a payout unless you follow certain procedures. You have to make sure that the passwords are complex and changed on a regular basis. You have to make sure that, like you said, 2-factor authentication on wiring transactions. I mean, a recent condo association was taken for $276,000. Yeah. And there was no way that they could get that money back. The same process occurred as
because
what William
they
just said.
didn't fulfill their end of what they
That's
needed
correct.
to protect
Yeah,
themselves.
they're not going to insure a person's house if you're making gasoline inside of the house.
Right,
you know?
right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That's
Similar,
a good
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we're still kind of in that habit. All right. So here's a caller saying, recently hacked, but didn't know until my cable company alerted me to change my password. So how quickly are companies required to notify customers? That's a good point. And what if they don't contact customers in a timely manner? Is there some sort of liability on the other end? That's a good question. I don't know. What's kind of
So the companies are getting better at detecting when suspicious activity goes on with the account. So for me, like when I travel and I forget to notify my credit card company that I'm somewhere else, they'll actually either try to call me on the number that I leave with them, or they'll block the card, right, to prevent unauthorized transactions from going through. But for example, like the cable company, I think we still have to proactively try to monitor, making sure that the charges to our accounts are actually legitimate. So, I mean, that could be any
But I
utility.
like his point where he says, what is
The liability.
what's the liability? Like, what
Depends
is
on
the
the industry.
what's the
Because,
responsibility
yeah,
of the
regulated
company?
industries
Yeah.
have different requirements. So maybe if it's health, HIPAA, electronic
Okay.
personal health information, that's the records, health records that are stored. HIPAA actually is an act, that was passed by Congress, and so it actually has some stipulations. You have, this amount of time to report. You have to, for
Well,
any
it's having
breach
to do
over
with
100, you
personal
have
medical
to be,
records, and so
Right.
it's far more sensitive. So
Not
yeah,
every company
it's
has,
established.
not every company has the requirement to even be actively looking for these kind of breaches. So it's
Well, but
really
think of the person who just called in, though. I mean, they've been notified by their cable company, and I mean, I may get in trouble for saying this, but a lot of the stuff we see on the dark web are compromised Hawaiian Tel and Spectrum or Hawaii Roadrunner accounts. There's just a lot of it out there, and I think they have best effort in terms of trying to protect their own infrastructure, but they're responsible for so much. There's only so much they can do. So we often recommend that clients either set up a Google account with two-step authentication, and they can forward their messages across if there's been any sort of issues. And that way, at least they feel like they're a little bit safer, and at least they're in a two-step authentication environment, which I don't believe any of the local carriers can give right now.
right.
So that's something that the caller can definitely do something about.
And that's like when you enter in your email username and password, it's also going to text your phone, so you have to enter in a
Right,
code.
separate code, yeah.
Right. So that is something that you know and something that you have, and that's more difficult to compromise even if they have your password.
And additionally, just be very mindful and check your accounts monthly, right? You get a bill monthly, at least anything, you'll be able to stop whatever unusual transactions goes on within a month. Right? So we just have to be very aware that we are being targeted personally all the time. So check your bank statements, check your phone records, check your cable bills, just to make sure they're all
That's
legitimate.
actually kind of, to ask this a little bit of another way too. Is there a, how do I want to put this? Not a standard, but sort of a recognized amount of time that you, if something were to happen, you would want to either respond or reconcile, if something were to happen based on, say like if, for example, if your account was compromised. I'm just trying to think of sort of what might transpire within a certain time frame that, or could transpire, that could permanently damage that account or your information, or not be able to retrieve it in a way that would protect you. I'm just
There's a couple things.
I'm
Maybe
fishing a little bit.
Going back to the
time
business
frames.
email compromise.
Yeah.
We're talking about money. So one point is clarification on the internet provider. Their account might have been compromised, but it doesn't mean the internet provider was compromised.
Okay.
The first question that I would ask is, okay, is that a unique password only limited to that account, or is it a shared password? And maybe there was a compromise in the other place, and then they found it on the dark web, and then of course they use that same password into the internet provider. And as far as it goes to timeline, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
When it comes to business email compromise, getting funds back, for example, we need to know within 24 to 48 hours,
Okay.
which is not necessarily
That's
possible
fast,
sometimes.
Right.
Yeah,
It's very
right.
fast.
But we are very successful if given the amount and the time window of getting those funds back, or at least holding those funds so that they're not going overseas. So we can get money back if we're notified quick enough.
All right, so here's a question from a caller. Works for the DOE. Employees are now required to change passwords to access payroll information every 3 months. It's a pain to keep changing, but supposedly safer. What do you think about that? 3 months? Is that pretty good?
It could. So there's new guidance that came out last year
Right.
from the National Institute of Standards Technology, and again, going back to the password length, they actually said that the length of the password is more important than the complexity and changing it very often.
Frequency of
And in
change,
fact, if you allow, if you force users to have a longer password, but retain it for a longer amount of time, then it just makes it easier on them. If you make it be short and you have all those complexity requirements,
Right.
then what you're going to find is that the complex password just becomes a number 7 on the end or an exclamation mark or something. And that password never really changes, there's just iterations to it.
But I have to admit, though, it's still business best practices that is still recommended that you change your password every 3 months. So that is still something I
pretty
think
standard.
these new standards, the new standards you're talking about, will need to make its way into the best practices that are recommended by, for example, insurance companies or cybersecurity companies.
To where they lengthen the time
Yes.
that people, maybe every year, maybe there's no guidance in the NIST publication that said every year or every 6 months. They just said longer password, longer time to remember.
Changing
the
my
password.
strategy. Yeah, I had it backwards.
The passwords are broken anyway
That's making it
because
crazy.
passwords just don't work. We know passwords don't work because.
Oh, look at you! You're answering somebody's question.
Oh, okay.
This is Lloyd Wine. Is there anything in the future that will replace passwords to protect our data? We're getting there.
We're getting
We
there.
are getting there. Yeah.
I mean, talk about
That's
the
happening.
biometrics, the facial
Yeah.
recognition. It's coming. It's not perfect.
So
Well,
let's
just think
talk
about how
some of that.
Facebook, with their tokens were.
Right, tokens.
That was
What
compromised.
are tokens?
Well,
Sorry.
I'm sure you've been to some websites where they say, hey, feel free to sign in with an email address and a password, or you can just sign in with your Facebook account. And you say, great, that's convenient.
Yeah,
Let me just
okay.
do that. So you
That's
click on that.
considered a token.
Right.
Okay.
Now that Facebook token database was compromised recently.
Yeah.
And so what happened? Now it wasn't just your Facebook token was compromised, but all the hundreds of thousands of sites that potentially could have shared that. Right. So now what do? Right. So now you got to go through and re-up all those different passwords and try to do this all over again. Yeah. And that's an example of how we're trying to simplify the password structure, but it can also be vulnerable because you have a single point of entry.
Right. And a single point of failure. Like even the technology if you start allowing like Google to be your sign-in, you're creating a trust relationship between Google and your site.
Do you trust Google?
Do you trust them forever? But that connection, that trust is going to exist forever. So there are ways to go back and look and see what you have. You might be trusting some site that's already been compromised from years ago.
So what are some other trends you're seeing? What else is kind of out there that you've seen?
Well, one of the questions that I get a lot is that we haven't touched on yet is the cloud. And is the cloud secure? Especially when we're talking about ransomware. As far as I've seen, the cloud itself, in and of itself, is a pretty solid place, secure place. However, just as we've been really talking about, it's how you access the cloud. Your username and password that you use to get into the cloud or access your data in the cloud, that is still a very vulnerable thing. And if they can compromise that, they've essentially compromised the cloud.
How do you describe why the cloud is somewhat secure? Like how is it secure? I guess this is.
It's not unsecure.
Oh, can you not get that?
Think of the best minds on the planet.
Right. Yeah, true.
Are working for Microsoft and Google and Amazon. They're creating these hyper secure infrastructures, but there's still private enterprises that then put their applications on there. So for instance, InSync, which is a recent a QuickBooks hosting provider, they were held up by ransomware. So lots of companies couldn't access their QuickBooks data and couldn't function because it was encrypted by ransomware. I'm still not sure as of now if they've actually got back up and running, but it's that's an example of the cloud infrastructure itself may be solid, the platform, right? Think of like a good foundation, but if the house that you build on it is rickety, it can still fall down.
They're not breaking into Microsoft's cloud, like for example Azure, Microsoft's cloud network or Amazon Web Services. They're not breaking into Microsoft or Amazon. They're breaking into the servers that are hosted on those platforms because that's where the vulnerabilities are.
I see. So yeah, I interrupted you there. So tell me a little bit more about what else you're seeing.
So yeah, business email compromise, ransomware definitely is still affecting people, and unfortunately romance scams. For a lot of
Okay, talk a little bit more about that again. Refresh people's memory when you say romance scams.
Yes, do.
Yeah. Let's go there, Will.
It's a misnomer that it has to be romance. Maybe confidence fraud would be another way to it.
Okay.
Is that you've
Yeah.
befriended somebody on the internet. Maybe it might be a romantic interest, or it just could be a friend that seems to have just this perfect relationship with you. And for some reason, it could be within the first week, or it could be a year later, then there's some kind of situation where they need some money. An iPhone, some kind of Samsung, or they want to travel to meet you. Of course, they're located probably abroad, and they want to travel because you have this budding relationship, but they don't have any money, so you need to send them some money. But then they have some airport plane troubles, and they need more money, and customs. There's always something that comes up that they need more money. The next thing you know, you've sent them thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars just because of this relationship. There's always something that is very believable. Their stories are incredible. And
they sound so real.
You know what's
do
what's
sound-
so
Can you
tough?
share any
You know
of
what's
them?
so tough about this, though, really, is that I can see why this would be a particularly difficult area because it plays on oftentimes human beings' needs. And so, how do you? And I recall hearing over the years numbers of cases where the case was exposed. The criminal was exposed, and the families became aware of what was happening, and the individual who was being scammed
Still didn't.
either still didn't believe it, or at times, even when they believed it, still was essentially okay with it because they needed attention, they wanted a friend, they wanted to hear these things, they wanted, and it didn't really matter.
So they
to
had that
them.
emotional connection,
So
right?
that-
They were
yeah.
so
So how do
involved in
you-
it. It was an okay
that's
situation.
tough.
It
That's
is.
heartbreaking. And you can't train.
yeah.
You can't train human nature. That's just something that you just got to train. Because these confidence scams have existed long before the internet, right? I mean, one of my favorite movies, an old movie, was about I can't remember the guy with the white hair, the comedian. He had the confidence scam movie. But that's been going on forever. The internet just makes it more accessible.
easier,
It's
yeah.
readily, it's easier to reach out to people
Right.
that are lonely in their homes and,
Right.
and might not get out
I
except
guess
for
maybe
on
a
the
question
internet.
for family members or for people who are concerned about someone who might be more vulnerable to that type of situation. What do you share? What do you talk about? What seems to help?
Well, I know with my kids, they really like playing with Roblox and these kind of interactive games. And there's other people on there, right? And they bump into those other people, and we have to explain to them, yes, these are other people. They're not little square characters. They're actual real people, and they could be asking you for information and not to give it to them. Having frank and honest conversations, I don't think that's unreasonable as parents. We should definitely be doing that.
And as children too, for our older population, Hawaii has a much aging population,
point.
and they have credit cards. My kids don't have credit cards, but my parents do.
Right.
And so those are the folks that you want to talk to about protecting your financial information or protecting your username and password.
Well, let's go there a little bit further. If your parents, your elderly parents, you're concerned that there might be some issue there. What are you legally allowed to do for another adult as far as protecting them online? And I don't know how much of it has to be either verbally approved or authorized, or what can you do in that situation if you maybe say your elderly parents either aren't aware or don't want you to be taking control over their information? What are you legally allowed to do to try and help protect them?
The legal part of it, I would, just best practices. You want to have a power of attorney that gets invoked when you need it, just because emergencies can happen, right? And sometimes that power of attorney could help you gain access to accounts if you need to help them in a legal manner.
Okay.
But the other thing is just, talk to them and gain their trust and say you're there to help them and say, hey, do you want to share with me what's going on? Show me some of the things going on the internet. I'm curious. I want to see what you're doing. It's kind of
if it's dementia, then you probably want to look at trust. But
Right.
if it's just,
Yeah.
but most of this isn't things like dementia. It's not progressive mental illness or decay. It's just people being gullible or just not having the
Right.
information. And it's not a bad thing because we're all gullible in some aspects of our life.
I think
but
there's a lot of
be
families
informed.
probably in this situation right
Right.
now where, because our population is living so much longer,
Yeah.
right.
they
It's important to have the conversation with the parents, grandparents, sooner rather than later, because part of the confidence fraud or the romance scheme is they're going to be putting some kind of wedge in between the victim and their family, because they want the person to trust them over anybody else. And so they will try to start manipulating them so that if you start coming in late saying, hey, don't send them that money, it's
That
all part of the
bond's
scheme.
already-
Right.
They've already planted that seed I told you that's what they're going to say. So have that conversation now. I know that I grew up being the computer guy of the family, and yes, it would sometimes frustrating to get that call. Hey, Will, my printer doesn't print. Just be that person that if there ever is a situation, you're receptive to a phone call.
Yeah, those shame scams, they really, that's the perfect example. And I'm sure you come across those. They take those dark web usernames and passwords
Oh,
that we were
right.
discussing,
I
right?
got one of those.
Yeah.
And
the
what
the
happens?
ladies always laugh. The
Yeah.
guys,
What
not so
happens?
much.
Well, it's like so my LinkedIn account password was breached in that LinkedIn attack. And now, just recently, I've got this email that says, hey, I've got your LinkedIn password. I know what you were doing on the internet. You were going to these sites. You don't want anybody else knowing that you went to these sites. I'm just going,
pictures.
I got one.
Yeah.
I got one of these. Right? Because I know it's a scam, but there are
Right, right.
people that go, is this real? I'm going,
Sure.
yeah, right.
Okay,
'cause
so
maybe-
here's one from Mike Mililani. If one is getting a lot of spam calls, he's getting a lot of spam calls on his landline, also his cell phone, I guess. Does that mean that he's already been hacked and more likely more vulnerable at this
No.
point? Something's already been compromised?
No.
It's
Not
just the next phase.
necessarily.
It's just the next phase of like spam. You know, now it's on phones.
Okay.
Because
So I think
the
he's
spam
wondering
filters
is
are
like,
getting better.
have I already been compromised in all these other ways because I'm getting a lot of calls? Or not necessarily?
It's interesting what happens with some of this data that's on the dark web, because sometimes it's taken and then resold, right, to legitimate organizations who are looking to boost their business, and they buy the list and they go out and market their services. I mean, I've been getting some text messages recently for the solar panels.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I'll
we've
stop
been getting
texting
that,
you.
and of course for years we've all been getting the calls for the car warranties.
Car warranties,
right?
yeah, appliance warranties.
Yeah.
I guess I would think that too. I mean, sometimes is it just where the trend is going, or is this person more compromised because they're getting what they feel like is a lot of calls at this point in time?
No, they just
So I think, yeah,
Not
so the point is,
Predicted
I get a lot of
violations
these
too,
calls too. I think we all do. So just proactively, I just auto block them. So if I don't recognize the number, I go to voicemail. If you're legitimate, you'll leave me a message and I'll call you back. Otherwise, I just ignore
So
it.
what do you see kind of on the same thread there? What do you see as far as trends of the frequency and the upticks or downticks of
Holiday
when
seasons.
these holiday seasons? Yeah, I guess so.
Anytime.
Political
Like
season,
caring,
I would
giving.
think.
Anytime there's a natural disaster,
Anytime there's a natural disaster. What else? Where are you guys
Tax
seeing the
time.
upticks?
tax time.
Tax time.
Right.
Okay.
We can't give you any more because that would be all the time.
That's it. I know we're getting there, right? Okay, security. Here's another question. There was a security breach of high school students. This is going to go to you, Jody.
Yes.
Security breach of high school students who participated in a UH program. Does
Correct.
it sound familiar?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Earning college credits in
Yes.
high school. How secure is the University of Hawaii servers? They're going to go right to the
So let me explain.
Okay.
So it was actually a third-party vendor that was contracted by the P20 Hawaii program
Okay.
through the
Was this
University of
fairly
Hawaii.
recently, or-
It was
Okay,
very
that was-
recently.
yeah, it's
Yes.
specific.
And actually, it was a potential exposure. So at the time, the university was notified. The third-party vendor just notified us because they just discovered it. So they're still undergoing their investigation. There is no actual evidence yet that that information was actually what we call breach or leaked or
Compromised.
exfiltrated, right? So they just knew that there were some strange activities going on the server. So we're still waiting to see from the final report from the forensics company that the third party hired. But as far as we know, it's information that doesn't involve social security numbers, doesn't involve financial information. So, but to answer the question about how is the university server secured, once we detected or once we were notified that this went on with the vendor, we immediately ceased all connections with that third party and made sure that our infrastructure was secured. Because a lot of times from a compromised system that has a connection back to another server, they can come into us.
So if they hadn't notified you, I mean, at what point might you have realized that, or not necessarily?
we
Would
might
it-
not have necessarily
Yeah.
realized it, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because it occurred in.
So what is
in
the
the cloud.
responsibility of third parties anyway to?
So make sure that you
Depends.
put in the contract language, which we did have at the university, that stated that if there should be an exposure, that the company must notify the university immediately.
And again, it depends on which industry you're in, because if you're a DoD contractor, new DoD contracts, they have this DFARS, it's part of the Defense Finance and Acquisition requisition system. And that says, hey, if you're going to do business with us, you have to have these security measures in place, and that's huge. But not everybody can afford. If I'm just a small business, small medium businesses, and I'm dealing with another business that we do have that transaction, we should have some kind of business associate agreement in place. But again, there's nothing like federally or legislatively binding.
Well, actually, I think through the DFARS, it says there's a 72 hours reporting requirement
Right.
if there's a breach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
From
again,
the third party, or whomever, or I'm sorry. No,
If I found I was breached, I'd have 72 hours
To report
to
it back.
report it back up to DBIDS, which is the DoD's.
Okay, that's specific.
the defense industrial base.
Okay, so I was wondering how long this would take to come up. Okay, the Russian hacking. All right, we're familiar with the Russian hacking influence in the 2016 election. What other ways are we vulnerable from other countries? This is pretty broad. Stock market media, news media. What kind of maybe I guess stands out to you? What are some examples that stand out to you as ways that you're really seeing?
Sure, Kaspersky, FaceApp. I mean, it can go on and on. I mean, as we know with the recent FaceApp scandal, right? Everyone loves the app. In fact, my wife made me look very old on it, and it was a lot of fun.
That's right. I've been seeing it all over the Facebook pages. Yeah,
right.
And they're doing it with all the celebrities. Yeah.
Okay. What happened there?
Well, they figured out that the developers were out of Russia, and that there was
I didn't pick up on that
some
one. Okay.
small verbiage in their, their really long terms of service that says that pretty much any picture that you create with that, they can use for any reason. They can put it on a
Really?
billboard.
Okay, all my friends out there, I know you've been using that app, okay? Did you hear what he said?
Yes.
Now they can use that image.
Right.
I didn't, wow.
And that's the thing, that you really need to read those terms and conditions that you normally just click through. Because sometimes those
We're
terms
so
and
used to
conditions,
moving so fast.
right? But sometimes those terms and conditions state that they can use your data in perpetuity for whatever purposes they want and resell it any way they want. So that's the part, and we don't spend the time reading it, but that's the things that get buried into all of that.
Yeah, I've sounded like a conspiracy nut for dozens of years for saying when Cisco, an American company, was making networking gear, and then Huawei came up, and they were up and coming. They were like a competitor to Cisco, cheaper prices, used the same kind of, basically could do the same thing. Stay away from some of the Chinese electronics, and more recently, like in the past few years, has come out that China does say, hey, you have to give us as a state access into any electronic devices that you're putting out there.
Okay, so that's a good way to sort of for people to think about it. I think that maybe it's not just it's conspiratorial. It's the way that they the language that they use and the type of contracting or whatever types of agreements exposes you, has the potential to expose you more. Is that fair to say, or how would you?
Yeah, and sometimes it's just straight up state sponsored.
Okay.
Espionage. Yeah.
Okay. No, it really is. Okay, it is. I'm trying to soften it, but why would I soften it?
It's been around a long time.
It has.
Look at 007. Yeah, this is not new stuff.
But I think the technology makes it broader, more far-reaching, and it just quicker, right? I mean, and they can get more things fast.
Okay, I think this is a safe question. He says, wants to know if he is more safe, secure since he doesn't use social media. Who wants to answer that real quick?
Well, there's this Exactus data breach that I'm sure you heard about.
Exactus? Say that again?
Exactus. Yeah, I bet you've never heard of them, right? Yeah. They are a data aggregation company, otherwise known as a data mining company. Right. And so they'll take one piece of information from social media and another piece of information from your shopping habits, maybe some websites that you've been to, et cetera, and they'll create this online profile. And then that profile then is sold in real time, in microseconds, to any shopping site. This is a legal company. Absolutely legal. There's lots of them that do this. Yeah. And those profiles that you create are then used to give you ads that are relevant to what you're looking for based on your demographic in real time. So they sell that stuff. And there was a breach of 340 million records. And that's more than the number of people we have in this country. So we can all assume that all of our information was leaked out in that breach. So social media is just one dimension of who you are. And even if you don't do a lot on there, you're probably doing other things like buying food and buying other things.
So any of those retail apps too, right? They
Absolutely.
Trade your data away, buy, sell.
Do you know what the thing is? I like targeted ads. I like the ads that are targeted towards me and
I think that's,
relate to me, and it's a fine balance. So it's like I like targeted ads, but keep my information safe, would you?
I think that's kind of the sort of back on everybody's brains. They really do realize how much this is exposing.
Absolutely.
But we like it. We enjoy that access. We want to have that, and so
part of me is like, I don't think like a company should have more information about me or know what I like more than my husband does. Yeah. But probably they do because they have this aggregate pool of data that they've collected.
But they'll put the ads on his Facebook and tell him what to do.
Okay, so I wanted to go back just a little bit because of what you do well, but asking about, because you do handle a lot of cases and crimes that cross overseas, cross Saipan and Guam, like we were talking about. From that standpoint, what else are you seeing as far as the areas that when we're talking about, I shouldn't say we're talking about overseas, because everything is overseas because it's online. Like, you can't really think of it that way, can you?
No, as soon as you get on the internet, you are now into the world, essentially, because the server that you're connecting to is probably in California, maybe, or in Asia, wherever it might be. So you're automatically going to be going abroad. With that comes the complications. Obviously, we've been talking about cybersecurity, and the whole point is that there's hackers out there, cyber criminals out there. Well, that's where the FBI comes in. I would like to say, and I will say, Hawaii doesn't have too many cyber criminals residing here. I'm sure there are some. We're coming to get you. But I would say most of them reside outside of course, Hawaii, outside the United States. Then we come into complicated issues, because one of the biggest things that I have problems with is that there's so much crime out there that's not being reported to the FBI or law enforcement in general. And if we don't know what's going on, then we definitely can't help. We need that information. Well, then of course, one of the biggest things that I get is, well, we know that the criminal's not here in the United States, so what can you do about it? We can do a lot. We have great relationships with many countries, some not so much, but many countries out there. We work with that law enforcement agency where the subject might be residing, and then we may complicate their lives from there.
Well, let me ask it to you this way. So if somebody, I think there's a question here, for individuals with limited technology knowledge, where do they start? Where do I start once I discover they've been hacked, and who do we call first? And we'll get to that in just a minute. But I think for people, it's so broad to think about like what I need to know or say or remember or whatever if I'm actually going to take the steps of going to some sort of agency or law enforcement to report this. It feels so big. What kind of specifics might you be able to give, or what type of bits of information can the average Joe think about they might want to try and get if they can, or remember, or what's can the average person wrap their brain around as far as what would help someone like you?
We'll give ransomware for an example. So obviously the FBI's stance is that we recommend not paying the ransom. However, we respect and understand that it's a business decision. So even if you have made the decision and paid the ransom, you can provide us the email that was sent to you that you have tracked down to say, oh, this is where
delete that because you're worried that it might do something to
this is where it came into our systems because we clicked on that link. We would like the email address, that email, and of course, you paid a ransom in Bitcoin to a Bitcoin address. Well, we would like to have that Bitcoin address so we can do what we do from there. So there's little bits of information, email addresses that you get from the bad guy. We would like that. We'll take it into our Big Brother database and start doing some things like that. Anything that you can kind of link towards the bad guy, that's information that could be beneficial to the FBI.
Because correct me if I misstate something, but those, all the Bitcoin transactions are public, so you can actually see, kind of follow the money from wallet to wallet, or at least see the transactions happening. And you guys have had recoveries based on just Bitcoin transactions, correct?
We've had recoveries and arrests.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, look at you. You just answered Sam's question from Hawai'i. Has the FBI made arrests in Honolulu for cybercrime?
We have. We've had numerous cases that originate out of or around Honolulu that we've successfully been able to prosecute. Again, a lot of the subjects are located outside of Hawaii, which is good for us. But yes.
What's helping?
What's helping?
Mm-hmm.
Time.
Resources.
Resources. These are not short investigations.
Yeah.
Because as we've already talked about, the servers are abroad. We have to do a lot of legal hurdles to go and serve our legal process. And that takes time to go send it to them and back and forth. We're talking years for an average cyber investigation.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from Mike from Honolulu. What do the panel think about the services that generate random encrypted passwords and the user only having to remember a master password? Yeah, I've seen those where they have those little apps and like, throw it all in here. And you just gotta remember this
Password safe,
one.
password keepers.
What do you think about that?
They work really well.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, great idea, especially if you have like 50 passwords. That way, every password can be complex. Some of them even generate the password for you.
Right.
And then you don't have to remember that. And then your long password, your master password should be long, and you can implement like a second factor of authentication, like texting your phone to get into that password.
Just don't
safe.
forget that master password.
It makes sense for not just small, small companies or individuals, but big organizations, because everyone's busy doing their own job, right? They're selling cars, they're fixing this, or they're cleaning that. They don't have the resources to manage all this stuff.
Yeah.
So those password keepers, you can Google which ones are the best ones. I don't
Okay,
want to
mysterious voice in my
Yeah.
ear saying,
Yeah.
where do you store those passwords then?
So
Where else could you store those? Yeah.
Oh, I see. So it goes into the cloud where it's stored securely. So those 50 passwords for all those sites, the banking, the HR, the payroll, everything else is in the cloud, is stored there. Now your master password, as Tim said, you can remember, but add the second factor authentication. So before you get into that big list of passwords, you get a text message, type in a little code, off you go.
Okay, so Alex from Hawai'i is saying, how do the online password vaults compare to a paper hard copy of passwords in terms of security?
They don't get wet.
I was going to say, yeah, don't let the cat pee on it.
They're only as secure as the company that's holding the passwords,
that
but
is true.
those password vaults are most commonly encrypted with
Higher grade
higher grade encryption algorithms that are much longer to crack. So even if those databases did get discovered,
Anna from Maui, how can one stop or reduce the number of targeted emails? Is there a way to do that? Is there a way to keep the
I think you can
from coming in?
escape targeted emails.
Yeah.
Well, Office 365, right?
Yeah,
Office
that's
365,
true.
what is that? What do they do?
So Office 365 has advanced threat protection,
Advanced threat protection.
which is like an add-on to their just basic package.
Add-on means more cost.
More cost.
Ah, okay,
it does
all
cost
right.
more.
Read between the lines.
But it is great.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already spam filtering in
Right,
Office
yeah.
365, but an example of a company that's going above and beyond is if you can do things like anti-phishing or anti-phishing, where it'll look at the email, and if it looks like it's coming from somebody inside of the organization, but it's coming from outside of the organization, or you can protect your CEO or your COO, or most commonly your CFO from getting a lot of these, people with access to the money from getting these types of emails.
Okay, I'll pop out a couple more questions here. Wesley from Kahala. Is there a legitimate use for the dark web?
Yeah.
Legitimate use?
I
Dark
think
web?
there is. It's a now the deep web is like the part of the web that all of our financial transactions still happen on. There's no access to it from www. bankdatabase.com, but there's still a lot of on the dark web. I find that there's a lot of freedom of information. It's kind of like the old internet before everybody was on it. It's kind of there's just a lot of open source information. But there is a lot of illegal activity too. The open source information started before the illegal activity. The onion routing protocol was invented by the Navy to do information sharing in
Onion
the public.
routing. I did not heard that
Yeah,
term before.
which is what the dark web
okay.
kind of. That's the routing protocol.
Look at that. I'm
Yeah.
Googling that later. Onion routing. All right.
Someone will be watching you.
Safe. How safe is facial recognition, and it's any safer than fingerprints and passwords? We were talking about that beforehand. Where we're going as far as we definitely a lot more of the finger stuff. We're talking about the retina scans and how effective that is. Is it a lot safer? I mean, I'd assume it is than your typical passwords or maybe fingerprints, but. What are the challenges?
It is very good. I think the only way that they've been able to bypass it was through some 3D printing. They 3D printed out someone's face.
Facial recognition, really?
Right. So high resolution cameras, they have 2 of them typically, infrared sometimes, depending on which device. And that will get you some very excellent protection. Like it's very good. So a lot of the higher end Ultrabooks, they already have it built in, which solves the 2-factor authentication problem. Such as like the
Surfaces,
Microsoft,
the
Surfaces,
iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Samsungs have it.
So that's where it's going now.
You know what the problem? I think it's going there, and Microsoft and Google are actually getting hit pretty hard for investing a lot of technology into China because China's really interested in this. They're very interested in their new social scores. So companies are doing a lot of heavy investment into facial recognition. The problem is that it's not quite there yet. Where I know when there's still a high failure rate. Like it won't recognize you, or it recognizes you gives you a false positive.
All right, so we got about a couple minutes left, about 30 seconds each or so. Just kind of wrapping it up for folks as to what else you want them to think about or be aware of, whether it's something that's new or just really just stands out to you. Last thoughts?
Well, I mean, I can definitely attest to. I mean, I have 2 young kids. Hi, guys. And you know, those kids are going to be entering a very different world in a few years once they start the job market. And so I believe that if we can implement best practices, we can manage our risk. Ultimately, we can help create local jobs. And you know, just those best practices are going to protect the organizations that we have now. Let's keep them thriving. Let's not try to cut corners. You know, do things the right way. It's not that expensive. And if you have any questions, hire a professional. There's lots of people out here who can help.
And then basically, you know, practice cyber hygiene. Strong passwords, 12 or longer characters.
Cyber hygiene, got it.
Patch your computers, you know, and operating systems, and don't be so trustful.
Okay, we just got a little bit of time left. Who wants to pop in?
Use the tools that are already in your system. Encrypt your hard drives, you know, with those tools that are built into Windows or Mac. Make sure you have Find My Phone or be able to remotely wipe your phone if you lose it, and use the security tools that are already packaged.
And don't forget backups.
Okay.
Don't forget backups. Yeah.
Backups, and don't
Backups.
trust what's on the internet.
There you go. Short and sweet. All right, thanks so much, all of you. Mahalo to you for joining us tonight. All of you, thank our guests, Jody Ito, University of Hawaii's Information Security Officer, Timothy Ames, Chief Technology Officer for Hawaii Tech Support, Attila Saris, President of the cybersecurity firm Cylanda, and Will Bales, the Supervisory Special Agent in the FBI. All right, next week on Insights, we take a close look at the proposed Alawai Canal Flood Risk Management Project. So join the discussion next Thursday night. I'm Laurie Amata for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Ahui ho.